All right. So today we are diving into, well, a deep one. We're tackling the ideas of Chairman Mao Zedong.
Yeah, he's a big one.
Big figure, huge impact. We've got a whole stack of his writings here, trying to get past the famous quotes, see if we can find the core of what Mao Zedong thought really was.
And that's key, right? Not hero worship, not demonizing. We're here to understand because love him or hate him, Mao's ideas, they reshaped China, like fundamentally. Can't grasp the country today without getting where it came from.
Totally. So no angry letters, please, from either side. We're all about understanding here. Okay, so this quote, this one really hit me. Without the efforts of the Chinese Communist Party, China can never achieve independence and liberation or industrialization and the modernization of her agriculture. So it's 1948, right before they take over. Talk about confidence, huh? What was going on that he could say this?
Right. Got to see it from back then. China, it wasn't the powerhouse it is now. Imagine, ravaged by internal wars, constantly being pushed around by foreign powers, the Communist Party, they weren't just offering an ideology, they were selling themselves as the answer to like a century of humiliation.
And they weren't just all talk, right? I mean, that famous line, political power grows out of the barrel of a gun, that wasn't just a cool slogan, it was their reality.
Oh, absolutely. This wasn't some intellectual debate. This was born from decades of fighting. The party's success, it was deeply tied to military victories. But, and this is where it gets interesting, there's this weird contradiction at the heart of it all.
Oh yeah, I see it too. Because they're all about the party, right? The vanguard, the absolute leaders. But then there's this huge emphasis on the people, the masses. Like he says, the people and the people alone are the motive force in the making of world history. How does that work with single party rule?
You've hit on it, the core tension, trying to make sense of Maoism, balancing this absolute authority of the party with this claim to actually represent what the people want. And that's where this idea of the mass line comes in.
Okay, so the mass line, not exactly democracy as like we might think of it though, right?
No, not about elections or individual rights, you're right. The mass line, the idea is it's more like a feedback loop, maybe? Party gathers ideas from the people, refines them, puts them into action supposedly for the people's good. The party always has the last word, but it's supposed to stop them getting totally out of touch.
So the party's this super efficient processor of the people's will, is that it?
In theory, yeah. But of course, putting that into practice, that's where things get, shall we say, complicated, and where you see how the system could go wrong. Even today, you see echoes of it, right? The party, carefully managing public opinion, but still trying to seem responsive. To really get how that evolved, though, we got to look at another big theme for Mao. Struggle.
Struggle, yeah, it's everywhere in these writings. Every other sentence is about some kind of struggle. Fighting wars, rooting out class enemies, even like purging people inside the party itself. Was this just, I don't know, the times he lived in? Or was this something deeper in how Mao saw the world?
It's a mix, honestly. Don't forget, the guy came to power after decades of brutal war, first against the Japanese, then the nationalists, and right on top of that, you've got the Cold War heating up, this constant feeling of being threatened from outside.
Yeah, talk about a pressure cooker. But it does feel like for Mao, struggle wasn't just like what was happening to him, it was like his philosophy almost.
You're right on the money there. Mao, he saw everything through this lens of dialectical materialism. It's this core idea in Marxist thought. Basically, history moves forward through these clashes of opposing forces.
Not exactly a recipe for a relaxing evening, then.
Not quite. And this leads us to, well, kind of a chilling quote, actually. He says, "After the enemies with guns have been wiped out, there will still be enemies without guns. If we do not now raise and understand the problem in this way, we shall commit the gravest mistakes." And knowing how it went down in China, the Cultural Revolution, all the purges, it's, yeah, pretty haunting.
That's a lot to think about. So even after you win the revolution, unite the country, you still got to be looking over your shoulder. And of course, that line, who's the people and who's the enemy, it got pretty blurry, didn't it?
Yeah, tragically so. As Mao became more powerful, anyone who disagreed, even within the party, they could become an enemy, just like that. And this isn't just theoretical, this had real consequences. Like during the Cultural Revolution, you had intellectuals, artists, people who'd been praised before, suddenly they're enemies for not fitting into Mao's ideology.
That's what makes that quote so unsettling. It's like he predicted the Cultural Revolution in a way, right? Yep. Where millions were persecuted in the name of this like ideological purity. But then there's this other side to Mao, too, isn't there? This, like, unstoppable optimism, this belief that with enough willpower, nothing could stop them.
Oh, for sure. And this is where you really see the impact of China's history playing out. For centuries, they had been underestimated, taken advantage of by foreign powers. This fed into Mao's thinking, this idea that the spirit of the people, guided by the party, of course, could overcome any disadvantage, any obstacle.
So it's like a continuation of the struggle thing, even facing down these huge enemies. Mao always believed they'd find a way to win. Like that whole paper tiger quote where he basically says, these powerful nations are weaker than they look. Did he buy into that? Or was it more about, projecting strength?
Probably both. I mean, you're talking about a guy who understood how powerful propaganda is, controlling the story. But at the same time, I think he really did believe in this idea, the power of collective will. It was part of how he saw the world,
So it's like this, I don't know, this paradox, right? Believing in struggle, but also this total confidence. Like people can overcome anything. Powerful stuff. And it's still shaping China today. But for folks listening who aren't, China experts, what's the takeaway? Why even bother wrapping our heads around this stuff, especially the parts that are, well, kind of scary?
That's the heart of it, why we do this whole deep dive thing. It's tempting to go, oh, Mao, that's ancient history. His ideas don't matter now. But that's not how it works, right? These ideas, they're still out there shaping the world, whether we see them or not. So understanding them, even the messy bits, that's how we make sense of our own times.
It's like that saying, something like, if you don't remember history, you're going to repeat it, or something like that.
Exactly. And even beyond the history lesson, there's this bigger thing about how powerful ideas are. Mao's thought, for all its flaws, all the contradictions, it shows you how much ideas can change a country, whole culture, like change the flow of history,
Makes you think, the things we read, the stuff we believe, it can have that much impact, rippling outwards.
Totally. And it's why thinking critically matters, right? Don't just swallow ideas whole, especially the challenging ones. Keep an open mind, but don't check your skepticism at the door either.
Well put. Really appreciate you walking us through this. It's been, well, intense, to say the least.
Anytime. That's what we're here for.
And to everyone listening, one last thought from me on this. Mao, for all his contradictions, he always said how important investigation and study were. Never stop learning, question everything. That was his thing. And yeah, we might not like how he went about it or what he ended up believing, but that core idea, wanting to understand things deeply, not taking the easy answer, that's something we could all use a bit more of. The world's full of information these days, but actually taking the time to understand, really get it. That's more important than ever, I think.